Yesterday, the Rome schools have announced that they are, for the first 2 months, right up and through the end of October, they are starting online and completely online. And I think it was a tough decision to make. I give them a lot of credit for dealing. There are all these hashtag defund Rome teacher tweets out there and hashtags. People, yesterday, the county executive really, I would say would you say he was critical of Rome specifically?
So I was in and out on the conference call yesterday, I have to be honest. Rondinelli's been off. I've been kind of scrambling to put things together here each afternoon. So we had the call on the air. I was working on other things. I didn't specifically hear what he said about Rome.
Well, what I had said to James is that you're saying schools have to be back in session, and I get that, and they should be in person, and I get that. But at the same time, you're still running Zoom as an option for your meetings. Why is that? Because there are people afraid to come inside the county office building. So, and here's the other part of this, and we'll speak with Tony Pacenti, I believe, tomorrow. The other part of this is we've spent the last 6 months telling people this virus is spreading, this virus will spread, you have to do the right thing, you have to remain social distance, and now all of a sudden we're saying the opposite. It's going to be hard to convince people after you've convinced people. You know what I'm saying? And I think teachers and janitors and secretaries, all those people that work inside schools who are older and fall into the age group, they have been told for the last 6 months that this is dangerous and you have to stay away from it. And now all of a sudden, we're trying to make the switch, and I don't think that's going to be easy.
Well, we have been in phase 4 for like 2 months now, though.
We have, but there's still. I don't know. I just drove by 2 billboards that say the virus is still spreading. Wear a mask.
I saw that yesterday.
And Pacenti continues every time. You know these. I mean, let's be honest. We're shutting bars down and restaurants when too many people are there. You're asking to put all of these people and being told stay away from. Last night there was an expert that came out. My wife sent it to me. Concerts, stay clear of concerts, even outdoor concerts is what this expert is saying. When you watch Dr. Fauci, stay out of indoors. You want to stay out of restaurants. How many people are in a restaurant? How many people are in a school? Do you understand why people are afraid? Because the messaging is contradicting. That's the problem. And I get it. We have other problems as well, and that is kids, as you brought up. What do you do with a child when you're not at home? But even these hybrid models that the schools are coming up with, there's 2 days out of the week that you got to figure out what to do with your child. And the part that I don't understand here is you just can't put your kid, if your kid is a toddler, you just can't say, okay, you're going to be with a babysitter or you're going to be in the daycare. I'm curious to see how the daycares are going to handle this, because the students are supposed to be online on the days that they're not in class. So how are you going to do that?
I don't know, but I would say that part is near impossible. Just based on my experience with my own son's daycare, there's, I don't know, I'm going to ballpark it, don't quote me on this, 12 to 15 kids there during the day, and they're of varying ages in varying school districts.
How
you get them each at a laptop?
Each a laptop,
yeah.
Each staying in front of the laptop, each when they have questions. I think we're asking for too much. I almost feel like if you're going to do this, what's the difference between 6 students or 8 students or 16 students? If you're going to do it, you might as well do it all at 100%, because it's almost a impossible, this hybrid thing, which I kind of thought was going to be okay in the beginning, but I don't see how it can work if daycare is such a big problem.
So again, can we just talk through this for a minute, right? So you got, let's say the daycare scenario, and again, maybe I'm wrong, and if somebody's got insight on this, please let us know. But in theory, you put let's say you put a second grader next to a kindergartner, next to a fourth grader, next to a fifth grader, in front of a laptop with a live video stream. Everyone gets their own headset. Is that how it's supposed to work? Because if
Well,
there's
no,
10, if there's
you'd have
10
to have
programs,
a headset. You'd have to have it. Oh, and don't touch the headset. You can't have that.
right?
And meanwhile,
Otherwise, everyone's just going to be talking over every other teacher, right?
Meanwhile, teachers are being told things like you can't bring in your coffee maker because that could spread the virus. What
That's the
in the
stupidest thing I've
hell
ever
is
heard.
going on here?
Yeah, I think that's stupid.
This is when you put committees together of people who are not science people or medical people, and they're all in there trying to figure out how to come up with a plan, which is why the governor blew this. He should have come up with a base plan, and then we move forward on it. But I get it. If you have a child that is your child's age, this is a real problem for you. What you really want is to be back in school every day, right? That's what you want.
Right.
So can you do it safely? Sure you can. You can do it safely. Kids don't spread it. Oh, don't bring your coffee maker in. I'm sorry. The mixed messaging is ridiculous here. Here's what we're doing. We don't know. We really don't know if this is going to spread and if this is going to turn into a disaster. But we don't have any other choice, so this is what we're going to do. That's where we are right now in schools. Yeah. And if you think it's any different than that, I would argue with you all the way to the bank here. There is no great plan. And the messaging is mixed. You can't go into a bowling alley, but you can go into a school. So why is that any different? You can't do a gym. Gyms aren't, because gyms are the place where it's spread. All of a sudden, this doesn't make any sense.
Well, when you perspire, your pores open up, so there's a lot more receptacles for the germ.
Understood. The pores are wider and more open.
Yeah. They absorb. They send hand signals to the disease, and they just come right in.
And that's the problem we have here. Is if it's bad over here, why isn't it bad over here? That's the problem. And I think that the lack of guidance from the state because I really believe that the governor just didn't want to stick his neck out here. Well, you know what? It's easy to let all these school districts go and hang themselves. And then when it gets bad, he's going to swoop in and come up with some executive order to save the day. That's how I feel like it's going down.
Do you agree here, too, that because a lot of times the governor gets criticized for, a blanket program, and then, downstate's needs are different than upstate.
Here's how I laid it out. And I had an editorial, and it's up on our website right now. It's not the one I did yet. I've done two of these. The first one that I did, here's how it's laid out. You follow it, and listen, I'm an announcer. I talk for a living, and I make TV commercials. I'm not some expert, but I could figure this out. And maybe I'm wrong, but you tell me. Schools are already designed and ready to go based on their athletic programs. New York City is its own entity. Other schools are AA, A, B, C, and D. You then have one basic plan in place, and then they're modified for each district's size based on their class. You then pass these programs on to each individual BOCES, which handles 15 to 16 schools already. Each school reviews the plan back in July when they'd have time to do it. They'd modify it slightly for their individual school district. They'd work through their individual BOCES to formalize it, and that's how this could have been done a month ago.
It's interesting how you break up the schools into the class sizes.
It's already done.
Yeah. I would say this, though, Bill. It's not like we've had this since March and schools were already canceled, and then we could have prepared for 4 months. You act like we had like 4 months to prepare for this.
And don't get me wrong. I don't know the answer of whether it spreads or not by kids, or I don't know the answer. And I don't know whether the right thing to do is to do it online, to do the hybrid, or to do the everybody in school. All I can tell you is what we're doing right now is last minute. Nobody's prepared. There's no money to make it happen. The schools don't have the money to even they can't even get a hold of the Clorox wipes. So I don't know why we're dealing with this like this at the middle of August. I don't understand it.
Well, do you think they were wondering? They were wondering. They didn't make the decision to even allow schools to go back until this month.
Well, the guidance wasn't put out by the health department or SED until what? The beginning of August, end of July. I mean, and then schools had this gigantic booklet to go through, and And in some cases, they competed with each other. And they had to go in and decipher all of this. They put community programs together. Everybody comes in, and we're going to rebuild this. We're going to reinvent this system that's been in place for the last 70 years. Oh, boy.
Do you
You're
think
just
if
asking for trouble.
Lysol wipes were more readily available, single cup coffee makers could come off the super spreader list?
I wonder. Yeah. I do wonder. I hear the sarcasm.
I was talking to a friend of mine who's a teacher in the Sequoia School District. I think what they're doing is so she said she's got 2 classrooms to prepare. And she's got half her class part of the day and then another half of the class the other part of the day. And then there's other instructors that are working with that half of the class throughout the day as well.
So all coming back? 100%.
Yeah, they're all coming back. But she's got 2 different classrooms, and so the distance of the desks and the chairs is in place. But there's almost like a rotation throughout the building throughout the day for her class.
I don't know what works. Most classes, many of the schools do not have the luxury of having the space. They're overcrowded to begin with, and I just think this has been. I don't understand how he can. And I'm talking about the governor can mandate every step of the way. Every single move you make has been basically directed by an executive order. And now, all of a sudden, the most important thing of all is getting these kids back in school. And he's like, all right, here are your guidelines. You guys do it.
Well,
because that's how we do it in New York.
School district superintendents, I think all of them have undergone special training programs throughout their careers for this exact situation.
Yes, it was the Pandemic 101 class they took, where they would have to reinvent the system that's been in place for all of these years. So I see, based on watching what teacher friends of mine and my wife, and then parents, and then looking at what Manasseh goes through. This is the great conundrum here. How do you fix it? And again, I would be almost leaning towards saying, bring everybody back. If we're going to make the experiment, let's just make the experiment. Bring everybody back. But you can't do that because of these social distancing and the huge booklet of guidelines that the CDC and the health department, I should say, and the governor's office put out, an SED. They in order to follow those rules, you can't do that. But otherwise, what's the difference between you got to come up with a plan for 2 days or 3 days a week, right, for your child for daycare, or you got to do it 5 days a week, or 0. So the only way to really fix it is if those 5 days those kids are in school.
And I think part of that, the question you asked, the answer partially, whether it's right or wrong or appropriate or not, but it's the truth, is money. To pay for a sitter 2 days versus 3 versus 5. And fortunately, I'm in a situation where, we can do that if push came to shove. But I know that's not the case of every parent. You know that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And, there's the other issue that everybody's worried about, that reports of child abuse are way down. And they're saying that the kids are being abused. Well, I don't know that we know that. And I got to tell you something else. I spoke with one worker who is with Child Protective Services who said that she doesn't even like to go into these houses and hasn't liked to go into these houses in the last 5 or 6 months because of the virus. So what are we doing here?
I just remember when the sheriff even told me that the reports to the advocacy center were down 50%.
We're down. I think they
teachers are mandated reporters.
Paseni, I think, mentioned 60% yesterday. Boy, I got to tell you something. Based on what we've learned, we have to end summer vacation because it's highly dangerous. How are we getting through summer vacation? I'm being a little sarcastic. So Pat in Utica. Good morning, Pat. You're on the radio.
Hey, the valid things that you're saying. However, what if you were in a state with a governor who's just ignored this completely? What would you be saying then?
Well, I'm only saying that he didn't ignore it completely. He's
far from ignored it.
I understand that. I understand, but here's my question.
Nobody knows the formula to fix this.
Correct. Here's my question. Then why did he punt the ball on schools here in August?
Good answer.
What do you mean pump the ball?
Why did he just say, all right, schools, the way we do it is you guys create your own system. He hasn't done that. He still won't let bowling alleys open. Why does he think that the most important decision of all, not a bowling alley, but a school with 1,000 or 1,500 kids, that's the most difficult challenge of all. And they didn't even create a model for schools. They just said, here are the guidelines you're going to need to follow. Good luck making it happen. And, oh, by the way, your aid's going to be cut by 20%.
But no, that's not totally just.
Well,
okay, let's make our minds right now. These school systems have been working on ways to figure this out because the state has been saying, we're not sure how it's going to happen. You guys got to look at this. They've been looking at this for a long time.
That's not true.
Well, it didn't just happen last week.
I understand that. And listen, these schools have been complaining since July. They had no guidance. They did not know what to do. They didn't know,
or if they were going to open.
They don't give a shit.
Okay.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, you can't use that. Listen, I get you're defending the governor. I get it, Pat. But on this case, it's indefensible. I'm sorry. In my opinion, we can agree to disagree, but I believe it's indefensible, the fact that he just left it to the schools to come up with. And I get it, all the other stuff. He did guide this state, whether you like him or you hate him. You have to admit he guided this state through this thing.
Better than anybody else has.
Other than the nursing home issue, which is not good. But
nobody knew exactly how it was working either.
Right,
You know, I mean,
well,
right? I mean,
CDC did recommend against it.
Everything worked out great, but I don't think anybody knew exactly how it was happening.
I don't think anybody did either.
People
but
knew they were the most vulnerable category.
Yeah. All right, Pat.
He was trying. What he was saying is,
okay,
go back to the nursing home if you can take care of them.
All right.
And that was the best they thought at that time. They didn't realize
that's not
it
what
was
they
an
said.
incubator of.
They weren't allowed to reject anybody, right?
They were not,
Yeah.
and it was once they were testing positive, but okay to be leaving the hospital. So okay to leave intensive care. And the reason for doing it was so that we didn't overwhelm the hospitals. I get that. Unfortunately, it probably, although they're saying it didn't, it probably killed nursing home residents.
Well, that's
how many
political.
we don't know.
That's political.
So, all right, Pat. Either way, we'll agree to disagree if that's okay with you.
Alrighty.
Okay, thank you.
Trump's response. What you said is political, but Trump is responsible for every other death that's happened outside New York City.
Here is Tom. Hello, Tom. Good morning.
Hi.
Hi.
Why don't they just use the auditorium and
That's interesting.
Stanley? They're not being used, and they could put kids in there.
We tried to do that. I worked with a couple of school districts to try to do that at the Stanley during graduation, and
You're not allowed.
We're shut down in the middle of it. So because those facilities,
Big open space that they could
they
use.
are big open spaces. I don't know why you couldn't do something like that at the Odd. I think it's a great idea.
Because the filters are made before 1995.
Good idea, Tom, I think, but it's not one we're going to be using, unfortunately, as of right now.
All right.
All right, thanks. We all kind of have different ideas. Somebody came up yesterday and said that, and this was an interesting idea. It's a former superintendent who said, what I would suggest is you do 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. And so there are two groups, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So at the very least, and it would help parents too, because you have this cluster of time that you have to deal with, and then you have a 2 week period where the kid is going to be in school. And it is that 14-day period, right? So if there was a case, the person could quarantine. And again, I know we didn't have the time to do it, but I do wonder why there wasn't a committee in place at the state level to be doing this starting in March, or give them March, April. How about April?
May. Let's say May.
Let's say May. May even.
Wayne is messaging in saying, why don't we just have them go to school at Walmart?
Right, because let me tell you
Everybody-
something.
that's
Everybody
like
else, that's where
free
everybody else
game.
is. Yeah. All right, we have to break. It's easy, I guess, on a Monday morning to be sitting here, even though today's Thursday. On a Monday morning, to sitting here and serving up as your armchair quarterback. But I would say to the people of Rome, be careful. I think your school district is in a very difficult position, and ripping on them might not be. Go to one of those community meetings. They're probably going to do them on Zoom or something. But the ripping on them, I don't think, is necessarily fair. I think they've been handed a real tough scenario here to pull this off in just a few weeks.